Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast presented by Under Armour. I am your host, Joe Kuzma. I am seconded, as almost always, by Brian E. Roach. Say what's up, Brian.
What's up?
You're supposed to say what's up, Brian, but you missed the cue.
I'm sorry.
You missed the cue.
What's up, Brian?
Just a quick reminder to all of the folks out there who are traveling are already in the Pittsburgh area, interested in meeting Juju Smith-Schuster, Mike Hilton, and or Joe Hayden, getting an autograph or an item autographed by them. Total Sports Enterprises has an event coming up this Saturday at the mall at Robinson Township, or Robinson Town Center. Right outside the outskirts there of Pittsburgh. So if interested in that, you're coming in for the game, check it out. The tickets are being sold very well from what I understand, and you don't want to be left in the dark with that. So, but aside from talking about the day before they play a playoff game, there are more playoff games this upcoming weekend, the Divisional Round. And Brian, I think before we get to the meat of the ones we really want to talk about, being the AFC side of the bracket, real quick, we have the first ever in NFL history, first ever time in, a one seed has been an underdog in a playoff game at home. The Philadelphia Eagles, now without Carson Wentz, 13-3 on the season, but they have backup quarterback Nick Foles starting face the Atlanta Falcons, who were the runners-up in the Super Bowl last year. Who do you got?
Nick Foles has played very well considering, and this is not your average backup quarterback. This is an ex-starter. This is a guy who tied the NFL record for number of touchdowns in a game at one point with 7 or something ridiculous like that. It's a guy who knows this offense essentially. And I understand that, he's the backup. He's not Carson Wentz. But I think the Eagles end up winning this game. And I have to say that, or my brother will come over and burn my lawn.
So wait a minute. Yeah, I thought your one brother ate paint chips and he was a Bengals fan.
That's correct. The one brother who ate paint chips and was dropped on his head, he's the middle brother. He is a Bengals fan. The youngest, the child of the group, my brother Jim, who lives out in out here in Jersey, never really was a pro sports fan until he got older, and this is where he lived then. So I can't even blame him anything bad happening to him other than he just happened to live in Eagles territory.
I see. A lot of people are looking for an in-state all-Pennsylvania Super Bowl. I don't know. I don't feel that's going to happen. Once again, I'm going to go with, like I said, my usual instinct is coach quarterback. And I hate to say it, but Nick Foles is a backup, and there's a reason he's a backup. Probably better than most backups, not better than Landry Jones, but there were a lot of people who wanted Nick Foles in Pittsburgh, all kidding aside, but those same people also wanted Zach Mettenberger, so I have no sympathy. And I told you this off the air too, is that a lot of people, when I think of Nick Foles, people remind me of the guy that they did have there right before Nick Foles when they brought him back to Philadelphia, and that was Chase Daniel, and he got something like a 3-year, $15 million deal to be the guy, and Carson Wentz ended up being that guy, and Sam Bradford got traded and all this other stuff. But yep. Doug, if this was Wentz, I could see a situation like maybe where you have a young Ben Roethlisberger or somebody in that category, and this team has been solid, being the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't see it here. Sorry. Dan Quinn's been here before, not only with the Falcons, but before when his stint as the defensive coordinator with the Seahawks. Matt Ryan's been in this situation before, even before Dan Quinn was there. I got to go with the Atlanta Falcons, just as I did last week. I think they could pull I wanted to say the upset, but they're not. They're the favorites. So
Yeah.
I think they're going to end up being the ones to come out victorious this weekend.
Could be. That defense is just tough. I'm counting on the Philly defense to carry them through this game. I don't really think I got them past this, but I expect them to maybe get through this one.
Yeah, and the other game, I'm just going to go over right to that because, I mean, quite honestly, we're not too concerned about the NFC game until hopefully the Steelers make the AFC title game, and then you're looking ahead to maybe bigger and better things with the Super Bowl opponent. But just jumping ahead here, so that game is the first game on Saturday. And then you have the final game, which is after the Steelers play on Sunday. Might be in home in time, or at least listen to some of this on the national feed for the New Orleans Saints, who get to travel up to the home of the Super Bowl this year, which is Minnesota, which is their whatever type of palace that they got going on there. Crazy brand new stadium with the big Viking horn and everything. They're going to play the Vikings. The Vikings were 13-3 this year. Not the same Vikings team. Sort of not the same Vikings team that the Steelers saw in Week 2 when they opened up and beat them. Case Keenum was the quarterback then, but nobody thought Case Keenum was going to be the quarterback. Back in Week 2, we were talking about, excuse me, we're talking about Sam Bradford and how he just had like a game of, historic proportions, and then he just disappeared for the rest of the year. And you got this guy that's been a journeyman quarterback that's been lighting it up. What do you have here? Let me see. 3,547 yards, 22 touchdowns to 7 picks, and 98.3 passer rating this year. It's pretty crazy. But he goes up against Drew Brees, who... Man, he's also a GOAT as well when you're talking about quarterbacks. You got to put Drew up there. I heard some arguments. I think maybe it was on FS1 or whatever. You get some of these talking heads, and it's like no one ever brings up Drew Brees, and that's true. No one ever brings up Ben Roethlisberger either. It's always Brady or Peyton Manning, or people are still talking about Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he's been hurt all year. Drew Brees doesn't get the same kind of love, so I'll give you my pick here first, and then you could go. I like the Saints to do this. And now, they're not usually a good road team, but once again, Coach Sean Payton's done this. Drew Brees has done this. Case Keenum and Mike Zimmer have not. So I have the Saints going to a dome stadium, which is a little different than them, like traveling to San Francisco like they did a few years ago and losing outdoors. I have them winning in Minnesota.
I'm going to we can have this be the agree to disagree version of the podcast, because I'm going Vikings, but I'm only going Vikings, quite honestly, because my ultimate goal is a Steelers-Vikings Super Bowl, because I want it to be a rematch of the very first Super Bowl that the Steelers won. So that's the only reason I'm picking this.
Can't do it.
Yes.
That's going to be a home game for the Vikings, man. I mean, like...
Come on, wait a minute. Nobody in Minnesota has $5,000 to pay for a ticket.
Maybe they'll sell one of those 1,000 or 10,000 lakes or whatever they got, and they could get one. So,
I think, look, the Vikings defense is a solid, very good unit with a lot of all-pro level players. I think Keenum has a grasp on that offense at this point. They play well for him. They have been extremely consistent throughout the end of the year, and it's hard to imagine them laying an egg, but they could. Whereas the Saints have had some up and down games. They've played really well, and they've played not so well. The defense has been very surprising in New Orleans, based on Lattimore, as we talked about the other day. But it won't surprise me if the Saints win. But I'm leaning towards the home team in this one.
I mean, it's tough. This is one of the ones I feel is the coin flip. I think it's a little more clear-cut. I really feel it's clear-cut with Atlanta unless they really choke. I think this one could go either way because I think you have a great offense with New Orleans. And New Orleans has had a resurgent defense, but it's very difficult for me to look at Case Keenum versus Drew Brees. It's very difficult for me to look at Latavius Murray versus Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara. It's very difficult doubt for me to even put Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs in a category of somebody like Michael Thomas, or, I mean, let's face it, Ted Ginn has even had a solid. Ted Ginn put 53 receptions, 787 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Folks, that's Martavis Bryant numbers for this year. So, there's a lot of mouths to feed on this Saints offense, and that's one of the other things. Breeze could really spread the ball around. Now, I think the difference on the Vikings is that they really have that true tight end like Kyle Rudolph. It's going to come down to that Vikings defense versus the Saints offense. And like I just said, I mean, if this was being played outdoors in Minnesota, like before their stadium was built, and you had the game where the kicker missed the field goal for them. They lost to the Seahawks right in the final seconds or whatever a couple years ago, and it was like just frigid temperatures out there. Then I'd have to lean towards the Vikings. I'd say they'd be more built or more equipped. I think weather not being a factor, it's just too friendly for this Saints offense. So now the elephant in the room, not the Steelers game. Can the Tennessee Titans do the unexpected and defeat the New England Patriots?
No.
I called this. There were a few on the Steel City Underground pick'em for this week that did pick the Titans, and I said I think that's just wishful thinking. I don't expect it. I don't anticipate it. I don't even know or see how it would be possible. But I think the Titans, they got their sea legs there. They stood their ground. Marcus Mariota completed a touchdown pass to himself. That's something that's very Patriots-esque, and you only see them get away with it. It seems like all the luck goes their way. What if it doesn't go their way? What if Brady is a little banged up or something? I mean, let's put it this way. The Titans, they've got Dick LeBeau, so this isn't going to be anything that's different that Brady hasn't seen. Maybe he throws a wrinkle or something out there. I don't see their secondary being able to compete with the Patriots, and we all know what Gronk does. If they go and they play this zone stuff, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's man or zone, but I think Brady's going to end up chewing them up. And when you're talking about the Patriots offense, which I think they've scored the most points, or they're tied for the most points this season, I just don't see how the Titans can maintain and keep up with that.
Now, to be fair, the only way the Titans are going to hang in this game is if they can run the ball really well. Derrick Henry has to have the game of his career better than he was last week. They have to be able to control the ball and keep that offense of New England off the field. And I just don't think that it's going to happen. The mad scientist, or whatever people want to call him, Belichick, he likes to take one thing away. So they're going to focus on taking Derrick Henry away. It's not going to be so simple for them to just come in and do it. I don't see the Titans as being loaded enough. But at the same time, any given Sunday, who knows? The Patriots have a brain fart, and they play an off game. The Titans, if they let them, it's just like any other team. You let them hang around, and then there's always a shot. Personally, I'm just rooting for Brady to take a couple hits on that Achilles.
Well, here's the interesting thing. Yeah, I would like some hits on the Achilles too, or hit Gronk the way he hit the guy up in Buffalo.
Yeah, there you go.
The Patriots were second in points scored, but they were fifth in points allowed.
Oh, yeah.
So that is very interesting. We'll see. And they're also, if you take a look, 30th against the pass for the season, and defensively 20th against the run. Now, Tennessee was 4th against the run. So this is really squarely on Tom Brady, because the Titans defense 25th against the pass. So I don't know that Dion Lewis and all these other whatever guys that they got, like we were talking about this weeks ago when they played the Steelers, like Gillislee and Burkhead is injured, and I think he's on IR now. He's somewhere on this list. Yeah, no, he's actually probable. probable for divisional round. I'm sorry, he did not go on IR. I stand corrected. So they're looking to get a few of these guys back. Probable isn't even a designation anymore. These are all questionable. But I'm looking at Pro Football Reference for this. I was just looking at finding the statistics, and they have the current injuries up here. So some of these guys like Chris Hogan and things like that. Look, New England has advantage at home, and we know goofy things happen there all the time. This is the only thing I really like about this game is that it's being played in prime time. This is an 8:15 kickoff on Saturday Eastern Time. That means the a-holes won't get that big of a head start this year should the Patriots and the Steelers still – I'm using Mike Tomlin's words there, by the way. You know I don't say a-hole on the show. But if you remember the little Facebook Live fiasco with Antonio Brown in the locker room last year, then you understand where I'm coming from. So they don't get that big of a head start to start game planning against whatever. They won't have that edge like the Steelers having to play a Sunday night game last year on the road and then having to come and play the game in Foxborough. So basically a day and a half less preparation than what New England got, or rest for that matter. So I don't expect it. I don't like taking the Patriots, but the common sense approach once again is you got Mike Mularkey, who wasn't even sure he was going to have a job this week, and you have Marcus Mariota playing in his second ever game against Tom Brady, who's probably won more playoff games than anybody else, and the same as a quarterback, and Bill Belichick, and all the other yuck stuff that you hear the media talking about. I don't need to rehash that here. So I have to take the Patriots as much as I would dislike it. I would very much like if Tennessee keeps us close to the vest, they could pull out a victory, and then the Steelers do their job, because you already know I'm picking them. There's no way I'm picking Jacksonville. I mean,
of course.
Well, hold on a second. We're getting there in a second. But I'd love the AFC title game to be in Pittsburgh. So jumping to the game that is in Pittsburgh this weekend, and I think the weather is going to get nasty. It's probably going to be nasty in New England, too, if the system goes all the way through. Supposed to be coming here Friday night. Who knows? Probably not get anything knowing these weather forecasts, but there's supposed to be a winter storm rolling on through. That's not going to be good for Jacksonville. I already have – you know what? I got to say these things I said on Twitter. I know you're chuckling about this earlier. For those who don't follow me personally at Joe_Kuzma, I had some hot takes about Saxonville. They did not lead the league in sacks. Why are you calling yourselves Saxonville? The Steelers. And nobody's talking about the Steelers. Oh, the Jaguars' defense was all this and that and the other thing. Well, so were the Steelers. The Steelers' defense did some things that they hadn't done in like forever as far as the categories that they ended up in and finished in. Number one, franchise record with 56 sacks in a season. So that Saxonville thing, throw that out the window. I even have a problem calling them Jacksonville, as I said. They should call themselves the UK or the London Jaguars, to which one of my buddies who actually lives in the UK, a colleague that works for Steelers Wire, Simon A. Chester, he lives in the UK. He says, I would rename them from being the Jaguars, call them the Monarchs. That was the old World League or NFL Europa name that they had over there, and get rid of that ugly teal color. And he said something else too, P-related color that they had. So it was kind of funny. It's like I'm like, they have fans. I'm like, they don't even play at their home stadium. They actually go and play a home game overseas because they don't have people who care about this team. Now all of a sudden they're talking smack and saying they're the kings of the North because they went 4-0 in the AFC North. Well, the Steelers went 6-0. They swept the entire division. These guys couldn't even sweep the Titans. And we're talking about how the Titans aren't going to be able to match up with the Patriots. I'm having trouble seeing the Jaguars. I don't care what happened in Week 5. That's not the same Steelers team. It's not the same Ben Roethlisberger. That was a once-in-a-lifetime thing where Ben Roethlisberger throws 5 picks, 2 of them pick sixes. It's not going to happen again.
No, it's not. Let me say something about Saxonville. The original peoples of New Britain or Britain were the Saxons. So I'm okay with them being Saxonville because it gives an indication that they're going to end up in England.
They're going to end up getting sacked.
Yes. Here's the thing. Just listen to this list. Blair Brown, Paul Puslesny, Aaron Colvin, Jalen Ramsey, Aubrey Jones, Mercedes Lewis. That is their guys who are questionable for the game. All of those guys are important key roles, especially Posluszny, Mercedes Lewis, and Jalen Ramsey. If you're talking, we have our own concerns with Stephon Tuitt and Artie Burns, but those two guys are probably going to play. We've had good news about them today. It feels likely. We'll have to wait and see if they practice tomorrow. But the list for Jacksonville is much bigger. And the truth is, you simply cannot. I had to bite my tongue and stop myself from laughing out loud when people were talking about how Blake Bortles is going to beat us with his legs.
Like, is he going to kick somebody on the ground like a Vontaze Burfict, or like what's? I don't know. Yes. That was the most yards he ever ran for, and it was just pure luck. Pure luck that he ran for that much.
Yeah, I mean, they have had a tendency to not be as disciplined as they need to be in their rush lanes. They have not always been able to contain the pocket as well as they should. But to fear Blake Bortles, the runner, is just grasping at reasons to be afraid of the Jaguars. Look, I give the Jaguars defense a little more credit than you do, but at the same time, you are absolutely right. That game was an aberration. 5 picks from Ben, all 5 of which were either contested, problematic routes, receivers falling down, or tipped passes. It's not going to happen. I mean, that was a fluke of a game, and it was a game that we probably were going to win anywhere outside of that. I have almost no nerves about this game, which that in and of itself scares me. But that's the way I feel. I don't see as much smack as the Jaguars want to talk, as much smack as their fans want to talk. Blake Bortles is not beating Ben Roethlisberger in the playoffs.
I wrote an article, and it was talking about deja vu. And it was talking about a deja vu performance with the Steelers in this game against the Jaguars. And if you looked at it the wrong way, and I'm sure there are people that are, they only read the headlines on Facebook and comment on them, which just drives me crazy because I take the time to, I pour my heart into this stuff, man, when I'm writing it. But something popped into my brain recently, and I put pen to paper. Actually, it was fingers to keys on the keyboard. And I realized something. I said, you know what? Last season, the Steelers played a team from Florida, and they sucked. The team that they played, everyone thought was going to suck too. And you know what? They had a young running back that ran all over them. Ben Roethlisberger had a terrible game. Le'Veon Bell didn't run for any yards. And then what happened? That team actually made the postseason. They were better than what anyone thought. So you have a team from Florida last year, the Miami Dolphins, that put 30 points on the Pittsburgh Steelers in week 6 of the regular season. And then they come up to Heinz Field, where it was the second coldest game ever, and there is very good potential that this is going to be up there on Sunday as well. One of the coldest games, if this winter thing pans out, okay? Jacksonville, very similar situation, puts 30 on the Steelers. Now, this game was at Heinz Field, but young running back runs for, 180-some yards, Fournette did. Jay Ajayi was the back. He ran for, I think, 203, 206. I have it here somewhere. Le'Veon Bell didn't run for anything against the Jaguars in this Week 5 game of this season. It's about the same time of the year where the defense gave up big chunks of yards, big plays. Last minute against Ajayi, 60-some yard touchdown. Last 2 minutes of the game against Fournette, 90-some yard touchdown. Very similar parallels. Blake Bortles, Matt Moore. Is it going to be a similar result? I think it could be. I think we could see Le'Veon Bell just totally, Antonio Brown, Ben, just throw them all out there. I think they could smash the Jaguars. Now, I'm going to give the Jaguars a little bit more credit. They didn't have necessarily a better record. I think the Dolphins were 9-7 last year, so the Jaguars 10-6. But the Dolphins were they were the wild card team. That was the wild card round. So at least the Jaguars won their division, and they have, I believe, a stronger defense. They really talked about how Jalen Ramsey, who also has the Achilles problem, and by the way, Telvin Smith also hurt too. He had one of those pick sixes in the first game.
True.
The two corners, and you got Barry Church, and I'm trying to think of the other safety. They have a very strong secondary, but I still maintain when you have a healthy Antonio Brown, a good Ben Roethlisberger who, doesn't have all these distractions. They're finally clicking. The offensive line is all set. You have at least one All-Pro. Pouncey didn't get the All-Pro nod this year, but you have 3 Pro Bowlers. You have Bell. You have Bryant. He's back. You have Juju Smith-Schuster integrated into this offense and a healthy Vance McDonald, and you still have Jesse James who could surprise you here and there. There aren't enough Jalen Ramseys or A.J. Boyes or Barry Churches or anybody else left around. They're trying to say that these guys, they play so well, it's like having 12 players on the field. Well, the Steelers' offense has like 14.
Yeah, if the Steelers get out fast on this team, this game will get out of hand in a heartbeat. This will be a Jaguars-Ravens game, except the Jaguars will be playing the part of the Baltimore Ravens. Because they're not built to catch up. If they have to put this game on Blake Bortles' shoulders, it's going to be the exact opposite of the first game in Pittsburgh, where Bortles could throw 5 picks. That's all the Steelers need to do. Get up early on this team and watch them fall apart.
So, do you think Jacksonville has any chance of winning this? I really struggle. I think Fournette has to have like over 200 yards, and the Steelers and basically they don't turn the ball over, and the Steelers, give it up 2 or 3 times, a defensive touchdown. It has to be the same script almost as the last one. It has to be a complete and total collapse. And
the Steelers have to lose this game.
Exactly.
It's not that Jacksonville has to win. The Steelers have to lose this game in order for Jacksonville to move forward.
People are giving the Jaguars credit as though they have Tom Brady and this is the New England Patriots coming into town or something like that. This is the end of the road here. This is where the big boys play. The Steelers have had everyone rested. I've been talking a little bit of smack back because these Jaguars fans are even more bandwagon than any Patriots fan. At least the Patriots fans have been on the bandwagon for a few years now, so they haven't had to jump off. Kings of the North. That's a real. I found that funny. I told you the Bears won every game against the AFC North too. 2 of those in overtime, no less. So, Kings of the North. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna start yelling and shouting and screaming. But I do think winter's coming. I think it's coming for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And sorry, folks, can't give you any much more in depth than what we've already said, but even if you don't have, let's say, Artie Burns or Stephon Tuitt, I think that the guys that are playing in their spots, like a Tyson Alualu or a Cam Sutton, are more than comparable and capable against the Jacksonville Jaguars offense. If this were a different team like the Patriots that they're playing, then, okay, maybe I shake in my boots a little bit. But even if the coaching staff decides, let's sit one of these guys and give them some rest, I think I'm even cool with that. Give them another week to be 100%. I think the biggest thing is Steelers don't beat themselves, get out of this game healthy, and then wherever the chips may fall, we'll know by the time this game's played where they're headed, or if they're going up to Foxborough, or if they're just going to stay home for an AFC title game.
Yeah, I don't know how much more to say. It's the Steelers game. It's the Steelers game to lose. They have to decide to lose the game in order to not move forward.
Absolutely. And once again, Coach Mike Tomlin versus Doug Marrone and Ben Roethlisberger and Blake Bortles. So coach and quarterback, gotta give the nod to the Steelers, even if we're not going to be biased. Heck, even Tommy Jaggy, who's about as real as it gets when in our circle, he's got the Steelers. I don't think he's got much of an argument against that. So, folks, this is going to be a fun one. These should all be watchable games, except for maybe the Steelers and Jaguars. We'd like that to be unwatchable. The reason we don't want it, well, it'll be enjoyable. Unwatchable for others to see a blowout, hopefully, with the Steelers winning big. That's what I would like to see. That would be great. Get Bell out of there, fourth quarter, start running Stephen Ridley, bring Landry Goat out too while we're at it. So that would be awesome. I would love every second of it. I know you would too, Brian, but we're up against
Absolutely.
it. So, folks, if the snowpocalypse is upon us, be safe out there if you're traveling in for the TSC event and or the Steelers playoff game. Enjoy yourself, be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media. and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.